Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Today we're looking at Canto 3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, and it's text 42. Soham Harir Mritya Vidambanena.
Soham Hare Martya Vidambanena.
Drishondrinam Chalayato Vidatuhu.
Drishonaram Chalayato Vidhatu.
Nanyo Palaksha Padabhing Prasadach.
Nanyo Palaksha Padvim Prasadash.
Charami Pasyan Kata Vishmayotra.
Charami Pashyan Gata Vishmayotra.
Do you want to go word by word or just go
That's
directly?
just translation.
Okay. Translation. I'm not astonished at this, having traveled over the world without being seen by others. The activities of the personality of Godhead, which are like those of a man in this mortal world, are bewildering to others, but I know of his greatness by his grace. And thus I'm happy in all respects. Yeah. So the translation or the purport here goes like this. Although he was the brother of Dhritarashtra, Vidura was completely different. By the grace of Lord Krishna, he was not foolish like his brother, and thus his brother's association could not influence him. Dhritarashtra and his materialistic sons wanted to falsely lord it over the world by dint of their own strength. The Lord encouraged them in this, and thus they became more and more bewildered. But Vidura wanted to achieve sincere devotional service of the Lord, and therefore became a soul absolutely surrendered to the absolute personality of Godhead. He could realize this in the progress of his pilgrim's journey, and thus he was freed from all doubts. He was not at all sorry to be bereft of his hearth and home, because he now had experienced that dependence on the mercy of the Lord is a greater freedom than so-called freedom at home. A person should not be in the renounced order of life unless he is firmly convinced of being protected by the Lord. This stage of life is explained in Bhagavad Gita as abhayam sattva sangshrutihi. Every living entity is factually completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. But unless one is in the pure state of existence, he cannot be established in this position. This stage of dependence is called sattva sangshuddhi, or purification of one's existence. The result of such purification is exhibited in fearlessness. A devotee of the Lord who is called Narayana Pura is never afraid of anything because he is always aware of the fact that the Lord protects him in all circumstances. With this conviction, Vidura traveled alone, and he was not seen or recognized by any friend or foe. Thus he enjoyed freedom of life without obligation to the many duties of the world. When Lord Sri Krishna was personally present in the mortal world, in his eternal blissful form of Shyamasundar, those who were not pure devotees of the Lord could not recognize him or know his glories. Avajananti mang muda manasim tanam ashritam. That's from chapter 9, text 11. He is always bewildering to the non-devotees, but he is always seen by the devotees by dint of their pure devotional service to him. Hare Krishna. Mataji, if you want, you can come closer. It's just a small family here. Yeah. Okay. So we have a few minutes just to cover this particular topic. which is basically highlighting the theme of fearlessness. And Vidura, who was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, had an opportunity to reach a very high stage, very elevated stage in Krishna consciousness. He was insulted by his nephew, Duryodhan, and Duryodhan took a stab at him by saying something in reference to his mother. Your mother's a maidservant. If you want to really get under somebody's skin, like especially a guy, say something about their mother, and they'll just go ballistic, right? I was once in, this was on the second walk across Canada, and I stayed in Swift Current. That's in Saskatchewan. There's no current, and nothing's too swift over there. And it's just like next to that place is called Gull Lake. There's no lake and there's no gulls. I don't know how they get their names. Better have a name like Moose Jaw, because moose were there. Yeah, so I stayed with a couple there. They were originally from Africa, an Indian couple. And they had their big screen in each of their own individual rooms. She was watching soap opera from India, and he was watching, wrestling, which is theatrical wrestling, which is basically
Staged.
Yeah, staged, right? Yeah. So I haven't watched TV for years, really. Once in a while I catch it when someone's home. So I was wondering, like, which one is better, the soap opera or the wrestling? I think they're pretty much on par, the same level. The soap opera is more about emotions, and the wrestling is a little bit more about physical aggression. So, but anyways, I just found it very interesting and entertaining, even that one guy was trying to incite another, and he went on and on with insults, and he kept his cool. But when he mentioned something about his mother, then he went crazy. And then the fight went on. And of course, I think he won, the guy whose mother was insulted, because that should never reign as truth. So I just found it very interesting. So when Duryodhan was saying, mentioning about your mother's a maidservant, Vidura just about had it with this guy. He said, that's it, I'm just leaving. I'm not going to tolerate this nonsense. So he went on parikrama, he went on pilgrimage, and he just went on a long journey. And he would visit all the holy places that are sacred, and he benefited from that. He went through a purification. There is a lot of purification that comes from being outside, being under the sun, being under the rain, being with the wind, and dancing with the demigods, so to speak, and learning detachment. You're not behind a screen. In fact, if you want to be entertained, just look around you. There's always something going on somewhere. There's dogs chasing the squirrel, or this crow being chased by the little blackbirds, or it's all pretty interesting. Everything's very fun. Once in a while you see an accident, like a human accident, which is kind of pathetic, but yeah, you get entertained out there, and you get purified on top of it. Like everything's out there for you. You wonder why was that up the screen? Anyways, Vidura was not there during the times of screens, but we are talking about a time when you could see a screen, in the sense that Sanjay was able to see what was going on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, some hundreds of miles north of Delhi. And he knew exactly all the details he was picking up on, all the important details anyways. And so that was Vidura's decision to go, and he came back purified. And then he had a chat with his brother. I think it's time for you. I went. Now it's time for you to go too. Time for you to get out, get on with self-realization, and stop just, mooching around or, you know, basically taking advantage of what your nephews have to offer to you. It's time to give it all up and to go to the north, he said. Go to the north. Isn't that nice for people who live in North Bay? What to speak of Thunder Bay. Go to the north where you can get more self-realized. Well, stay within the tree line, okay? Below the tree line. And not the muskeg or whatever you have up there. You know. Better to be where there's some trees and caves, okay? Yogis stay in caves and they sit under trees and things like that. And there's berries growing around so you can eat. But up there, be above the tree line, what are you going to eat? You know that you're the food. The bugs will get you. Oh, so the thing is about purification and going out and being alone. This is prescribed for a few, like males, not females so much, because the females will get exploited by unscrupulous individuals. But men are supposed to go out there, and even though they may be under attack by some, some mental cases, because those are the people that are aggressive these days, with their guns, killing children, and family members, and then themselves. Wasn't there an incident very recently? You hear about it all the time. People are gun happy, and all these ideas came from the screen. Gun. Even what was her name? One of our members there. She was quite a famous singer there in Delhi, in the Bollywood. Who? Lata Mangeshkar, was that? No, she's a movie star. She wasn't just Lata Mangeshkar. She was somebody else, a follower of ISKCON. Anyways, I saw one little clip of a Bollywood movie, and she's coming down the stairs, this gorgeous curved stairway, and then suddenly from her side, gun. It's like an American concept, kill everybody with your guns. So before the time of guns, and during the time of bows and arrows, Vidura decided to just go on a journey of purification, and he was advising his brother to do the same. So he didn't argue about it. He just said, well, okay, I'm going. And he said very little. He said, it is time to go. You're right, my little bro. It's time to go, my little bro. And then his wife, Gandhari, followed her husband too. They were both blind. She had put a blindfold on, and Dhritarashtra, his handicap was that he was blind, not only physically, but spiritually. He was blind. He didn't have much depth, character-wise. So he went and took up the process of fearlessness, because that's what it means. You have to go out there fearlessly. And I know that sometimes, I've gone on these long walks and people express concern. Oh, there's so much to worry about over there. Something could happen to you. And usually I say, well, walking is the safest way of travel. Mm-hmm. It's even better than air travel. And the people that the harm is when you're in a car. 1.25 million people die from car accidents every year on this planet. It's probably growing. That's a lot of people. And many more are injured. They stay alive, but they're injured because of car accidents. So it's more dangerous to be in a car because you're just going too fast. So, anyways, let us, let's say, not fast forward, but let us go backwards a little bit. Sometime before this occasion, Krishna, who was a little boy, he was involved in his antics. Yes, he stole butter, but it's his butter, so he's not really a thief. In fact, he says, I am the butter, I'm the fire, so you can't blame him for being a thief. He's not the real chore that people claim. He did that, and he also had a little chat with his father and said, Dad, I don't think this is a good idea to worship Indra. We really should have some other consideration. Indra's not doing a great job, if you're doing a job review. He's throwing rain, having rainfall on the ocean and the lakes where they don't need it. The land I can understand, but there's some imperfections in the way he's conducting himself. And so, Krishna was putting forth, arguments and statements that, I think, why don't we shift our attention? Whatever puja is there, whatever paraphernalia you have for rituals, let us transfer it. Let's redirect it to Govardhan. Govardhan is being very kind to us. The grasses are there to feed the cows, and the cows are giving us milk, and and the bulls for what they offer to. I mean, I don't think Krishna categorically talked about the bulls at this point, but the bulls, their strength lies in their strength, and they are able, as ox, to plow the fields and do valuable service like that. So anyways, Nanda Maharaj got sold out on it, and Indra heard about this little mischievous, this talkative little guy by the name of Krishna, and how he's not getting the worship that he feels he deserves. Mm-hmm. So he just went quite crazy and summoned his Samvartaka clouds, the most devastating ones, the ones that bring on heavy rain. Oh yes, by the way, yesterday I was wanting to go for a walk, but it started to rain, and so I went by the gazebo over here, and as soon as I hit the cushion, there was thunder. I said, oh yeah, here I am in Thunder Bay. So there's thunder, lightning, and devastating clouds, dark clouds that hold lots of water, and Krishna came to protect everybody with the hill. He did that, and so the hill did some service, more than just providing water, because there were waterfalls at that time, 5,000 years ago, waterfalls on the hill, which had a greater elevation than now. So it did serve a great service, being an umbrella, a massive umbrella, and keep protecting all the. It was a little bit like Noah's Ark story. Noah, he built a big boat into which all the animals and the different species could be there, and then there was a devastating rainfall, and it went on for a whole week. Mm-hmm. And then finally everything subsided, the flooding stopped, and the animals were released, and they could multiply because everything else was destroyed. So you can say that like a boat turned upside down as an umbrella, right? They were protected in this ark. And so Krishna did the same thing. He protected the inhabitants from the devastating rainfall. And how many days did it take place?
7 days. 7 days, 7 days.
It's like the same thing, right? The stories are quite parallel, right? Only, the boat is like this, and the umbrella is like that too, but turned around the other way. So Krishna's caring for his devotees, and he's always looking out for them. And the Brijvasis were kind of special, of course. Not much is said about the surrounding areas, but at least that area was really heavy hit hard. Just like when you recently, with the Ian and Fiona hurricanes, they came and they hit certain areas. They missed a few other spots, but they, like Port aux Basques was hit pretty hard. Port aux Basques, it's in Newfoundland. But I guess at the tail end of the hurricane, it just whipped in there, and there was one lady, she was 73 years old, and she was in her house, and then the hurricane just took her away.
I was in St. John's that day.
You were there then? Wow.
That day.
Oh, good.
All flight cancelled.
Oh, really? Oh, say.
Stuck for 2 days on the airport.
Oh, all right. You stayed at the airport?
Oh, hotel.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is a story about rain. It's a story about a big umbrella. It's a story about the heroism of Krishna and the people who are dependent on Krishna. So fearlessness means to depend on Krishna. And if you are traveling solo, or if you're, some kind of yogi in the jungle where lurks, wild cats and, the likes of tigers and lions and bears, oh my. And yeah, you have to depend on the Supreme Lord, even in those circumstances. Sit there like a yogi and do not be bothered by what's happening around you. And it's my understanding that the deer skin has a particular purpose that, like Krishna describes, there's a husha grass, deer skin. Deer skin, it gives off a sort of a scent that keeps serpents away. I've heard that. Is that true? Is that true? Yeah, it's very possible. We should look it up. There's there's a biological reason for this happening. Pardon me? It makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that snakes smell very much, but I guess maybe they do. But anyways, let's try to find that out. The purpose of our celebrating Govardhan Puja is it's a reminder that we have to depend on Krishna. You do that by chanting his holy name, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And, give your whole heart out there. Trinada pisa nichina, tarora pisa hishnana, amanina, manadina, hiradaniya sadahari. That just approach the Lord in a humble frame of mind, being tolerant like a tree, being ready to, think of yourself like a blade of grass, and be ready to offer respects to everyone, all things, and in such a state of mind, you preserve sincerity. Sincerity is the key to success in spiritual life. And on that note, when I first got to meet devotees, this was in 1972, that's 50 years ago, at Christmas time. And I maintained a friendship. I invited them to my place in Sudbury, stayed overnight. And then after that, I kept contact. They sent me a set of beads that I could chant on, some books, and then also important was there was one pressing thing on my mind. And what was that? I wanted to understand what is the purpose of Maya. So I wrote a letter asking, why does Maya exist? Because Maya is like Satan, It's like evil forces. Okay, I can understand evil forces, but I wanted to understand a little bit more what the devotees would say. So one devotee wrote back, and he said, the purpose of Maya is to protect Krishna from those who are not sincere. So there you have it. It's a message about being sincere. That means to be honest with yourself and not to be superficial in our approaches. So the best way to practice sincerity is to pay attention to the details when chanting japa. Just try to give your full consciousness and concentration on the holy name. And also in all the other things we do, be conscientious about what you do and pay attention to details. The Prabhupada said that so many times. Pay attention to details, pay attention to details. And the details are important. Yeah. So anyways, those are some remarks we want to make. Any questions or comments?
Well, thank you, Maharaj. This is wonderful. I think Vidura's life matches with your life problem.
Yeah, he's kind of like a hero for me.
Yeah.
He's a super walker, and Vamana Dev is as well.
You have walked more than Vidura has walked, probably.
Maybe. Possible.
We just walked the Bharat Varsha.
Yes.
You walked the different continents.
Yeah.
Thank you for inspiring class, Maharaj. Very nice perspective.
Thank you so much. And for anyone who's out there, pardon me?
The way I was raised, loyalty included an element of humility.
Oh, yes.
Because there was always someone above me.
Right,
but
right.
Even after being brahmachari, I had to learn spiritual humility. The presumption, okay, I do Maha Mantra, I say the Lord's Prayer, I can do Islamic. But wasn't exactly smug, but it was a kind of arrogance